Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
So Hawaii-Volcanoes National Park has been making global headlines for its eruptions and moving lava, but that's not its only claim to fame. The National Parks-Arts-Foundation Artist-in-Residency program at this unique national park has also made headlines over the years as being a unique artist-in-residence destination. And we're excited to have photographer, sculptor, and mixed media artist Nick Collier back on the show today, who is the current artist-in-residence. And we also have the National Parks Arts Foundation founder and photographer Tanya Ortega joining us. And I want to tell everyone, go to nationalparks-arts-foundation.org. This is just such a cool program. I use the word unique a lot. I know I got to get a new one. Maybe I need a residency, but it is really unique. Where else can you go stay at in the volcanoes and in Hawaii, go into that park, go to the dry tortugas in Florida, the Keys, go to Chaco Cultural Historical Park and be amongst the ancient dwellings. So all of these things is what this park does, this park foundation, for artists, musicians, writers, poets, photographers, filmmakers, you name it. I mean, this is a really unique program to be able to go hang out in a park, whether you're staying in the park or just on the outside. It's a month of art and exploration and creativity. So check it out, nationalparks-arts-foundation.org. They're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And go look at Nick's work. Nick is cool. Go to nick-collier.com. He's also on Instagram at CollierN001 because he wants those zeros in there. Welcome back, Tanya. How are you?
I am fantastic.
Hey, it is awesome to have you back on, and really cool to have Nick back on too, because Nick, this is your third residency. The first time we chatted with you was you had just come back from Big Bend, and you were on your way to Gettysburg. So, I mean, this again just shows the complete different, unique residency opportunities. But welcome back for the second time. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thanks again for having me back. It's a real treat, and coming to you live from Hawaii.
I know. See, now people are all freaked out. Like, how can you be doing this? Like, isn't like all the islands are up in flames and lava, smoke? But you're both here, and Tanya, this is the second time you've been on since the eruptions over at volcanoes over there, which is, I mean, that's unique in itself. So, Nick, I just want to say, like, you've got this awesome house. You're on the outskirts of the park, and do you feel safe?
Oh, completely safe. Except for the fire rain and the dense smoke and the snakes that are constantly. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm like,
no.
Dude.
There's none of that. Oh my gosh, it's really
no,
funny.
I'm like, why are snakes always a part of our radio conversation?
From the air. Snakes in Hawaii. I love it here. That's one of the biggest reasons I love it. No snakes.
Are you kidding me? I'm moving right now. I love snakes. So you're loving it. Tanya, you've been safe throughout this time since last month that we chatted?
Yes.
Okay. This is good for people to know because someone had posted up on Facebook a map of the Hawaiian Islands, like, hello everybody, this is the map of the islands, and here's the portion of the volcanoes and what was, where the eruptions are happening. And it looked to me to be quite small compared to the rest of the chain of islands. Is that true, Tanya?
I think that we might have posted that, believe it or not.
I do follow you quite frequently.
There was one I heard about today that somebody actually drew a picture, printed a map out by hand and drew this is where I am. This is where the lava is. And it's like a tiny little dot. But the media just, it's an eruption. These I mean, I can't even imagine what the people are feeling. I heard today it's over 700 homes. People are being displaced. This is horrible for people. But a lot of people, especially in Europe, I've been getting phone calls, here at the foundation, people are dealing with vetting phone calls of people thinking that all of Hawaii is covered in lava, which certainly isn't true. And we've seen a real, the effects of that are just tremendous. And by effects, I mean like people with tourism. Even the cruise ships have stopped going to different ports because they see the media and are, it's media. What are we going to say? What's real? Nobody knows. So,
well, that's why I'm so glad you're both calling from Hawaii. And Nick, I know that you are on the Big Island. That's where the Volcanoes National Park is, on the south side, right? Or is it the south side or the South Point? You never know.
The area is called South Point. Well, really in area originally called, if you want to go back in history, as I've been learning the area a little bit, was called Mark Twain Estates, and now it's called Discovery Harbor, which is where the house is located. But that it's in South Point as far as the region of the island, which is in the Ka'u district of the island, which pretty much encompasses the southern rim of the island, the park down a little bit farther towards South Kona. But the volcano itself is a drive from the house, first of all. So if anybody's worried about my safety or the park or the house itself or any of the effects of the volcano, it's as Tanya was saying, it's a horrible, it's devastating to see the families that are dealing with it, and the destruction that it's caused so far. But as you guys were talking about the map of the island, I'm picturing in my head the Eames Power of 10 video. And if you keep zooming in on the island, the Power of 10, that it comes down to a very, in relation to the rest of the island, a very small portion of it. So it's really more, as we're talking about earlier before the call, the effects of the volcano. You have the fog that is pushed by the trade winds across the island, which creates kind of a haze over towards the Kona side. And then you've got the new term that I've learned since I've been here, laze, which is the effects of the molten lava falling into the ocean, and which creates a sulfur-based fume. Those two things are kind of the only real noticeable effects that I've personally been part of. You can't get close to. I tried to, like a moth to a flame. As soon as I get here, the first thing I want to do is go find the lava, right? So the first day I went out to that side of the island and drove around, and you can't even get anywhere near it unless I guess you're media based. But the National Guard and police, local police, have all the roads closed off and such. But safe and sound here. The only one downside of this so far is that it's closed the national park. The one caveat, or maybe side note bonus to that, is that near the house is a new addition to the park called the Kahuku unit, which is open, and gets a little bit of it, but it's farther down from the volcano, down the Mauna Loa slope towards South Point.
So for you, I mean, what are you focusing on art-wise? Talking about, okay, the park's closed on this side, but there's a smaller portion. Sometimes that's an interesting thing, because there's a different challenge. It's being looking at things more microscopically in a way of just what am I looking at, kind of thing. So what are you focusing on for your art? And is it mixed media? Or are you going in the photography world? And do you have your homemade box camera with you?
First, several challenges created by, number one, location, travel to location, and then the effects of the volcano on the park. But to answer the box camera question, that did not make it out here for this trip. I was fortunate on the last two residencies that I was able to drive to them so I could bring it. It is rather large if you've seen it in the photos, and cumbersome and heavy because it's made of solid oak. And to get it out here, I would have had to build a crate for it because it's sort of fragile. The logistics didn't work for this residency. So that created a challenge for me, yes, but one that I welcome. And so photography work will have to be digital and film based, or anything in that net media. I'm still developing ideas as far as what the rest of the residency is going to produce. That might be sculptural based. I'm not completely sure just yet. This first week has really just been kind of a whirlwind of immersion, really, and learning the history of the area where I'm staying. And, you know, even though my access to the park is limited, I still want to create work that's park based. And as I was saying, the Kahuku unit that's open near me has a really unique history in itself. The history of the neighborhood where I'm living has a kind of unique history, because it's this, and you know, I've talked to Tanya about this already. I've gone kind of back in their neighborhood's history. And the house is in a planned community that was built around, actually, as I found out digging a little bit, a world-class golf course, which is now, for the most part, other than I think about 6 holes that they have to keep operational in order to sell the neighborhood as a golf course. The rest of it's all overgrown. But
Wow.
You know, there's history within the area there, especially as I was saying, you know, it used to be called Mark Twain Estates because of Mark Twain's history in the area. It's the same area where Captain Cook, you know, first landed on the island. It's the same place where the native peoples originally landed on the Hawaiian island chain before they moved up the chain. You know, it's the park area. The Kahuku unit has a military history in that, well, on the north side of the island, Waimea, there during World War II was about 50,000 Marines actually came through the island training for what would ultimately be the Iwo Jima assault, which is, you know, the most famous thing in Marine Corps history. So that directly relates to my Marine Corps service. And then also in the Kahuku unit, it was what would ultimately be, they had a radar station that was positioned there, really secretive, but it was designed to be part of basically a chain of radar stations throughout the islands to detect aircraft and everything else coming through the Pacific Theater. But as far as I can tell, and I can't 99% sure about this, it seems that actually was the first usage of radar in a war theater. So that's kind of, yeah.
That's pretty wild.
You know, because Americans weren't involved in, you know, like that much of the war, right? And then like that all came about. The Pacific Theater was really like the tip of it. But yeah, you know, cool stuff like that. So I've like I said, I've just really been trying to like soak up as much knowledge as I can. One of the park employees that I've met sent me a dump of PDFs of information based on the Kahuku unit specifically. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. You know, still things are in this kind of stew that's boiling and waiting to see what comes out from it.
I think this is really, I think challenges are always good because it takes you in directions that you never thought of. You know, there's always this other way. And, you know, I'm number one, really glad that you still continued on with the residency, because I know some people probably would think twice. You know, I know a park travel photographer, Sandra Ramos, who her and her husband went there to celebrate their anniversary. They went to Hawaii and she's like, I'm going. No one's stopping me. I'm going, you know, and she's one of those travelers going to every single park unit in the country and the US territories. And, you know, it's so interesting when you see footage and also the military history when you're in this tropical, beautiful location, and then there's military history that reminds you that you've got to remember that it's not all like life just isn't that way. It's just not all paradise. There's always something that created and helped towards paradise, and you having those moments of paradise. And I think that's what's interesting with you and your military history, which is extensive, and then doing these residencies, you know, in Big Bend Tanya, wasn't that one of the first veteran programs that you did?
Was. It was. And Nick, you were there. You were the one, weren't you?
I was the one, yeah, that was me. That was the first military artist in residence of the national parks.
It really was.
Wow.
You're a trailblazer.
I know. I love it. And then you went to Gettysburg, and now I want to know about that. Tell us about Gettysburg. I mean, because this is also different. You're in Big Bend in the desert on the border, the Rio Grande, and like these amazing wide, just open sky views, and then now Gettysburg. So Gettysburg, did you have expectations? Had you been there before?
I actually had not. Even though I lived about an hour from there, really, for several years after leaving the military, I never made it up there. So I was, as far as expectations, they were wide open. I was really looking forward to it because of the military history and significance of the park and everything that took place there. But having come from Big Bend, and that residency was, as you're saying, it's middle of nowhere, southern border, of the United States, on the Rio, Mexico, and I shared that residency with Russell James Pyle, the musician at that one, and so in having that experience and having another artist there that I was bouncing stuff off of, who was a musician, so it's completely different workflow, work format, and then going to Gettysburg, where that the residency there, they put you up in probably the coolest place in the entire park. I mean, really, house wise, it's right and smack dab in the middle of the most like pinnacle moment, Pickett's Charge, and the turning point of the Civil War, and there's the fact that it's still standing is amazing. The fact that it's still standing and it's been kept up, and the park remodeled it for purposes of people staying there. So it has all the history and the uniqueness of it, but it still is on the grid, so to speak. And to read stories of the accounts of what soldiers that used that house as a physician during the battle, and were firing out of the windows, and you can still see shrapnel marks on the outside of the building. And once you get into that park, it really just kind of gets into your blood. Like there's this feeling in the air that's always constant of just like, I don't know, not being watched, but like there's like souls and just auras kind of around you of what took place there. And it's really, I mean, and when I was there, I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit. When I was there, it was in February. So it's like one of the downtimes of the park. It's not the summer when all the tour buses are there and it's just constant. I had the place to myself. So you go out into the park and you can sit there in the quiet and just imagine the things that took place there, and just back and forth of going home and studying up and going out and checking out the place firsthand, and doing the whole park. And then also kind of like what I'm doing here, immersing yourself in the local history, meeting some of the people that live there. I was able to go over to the college in Gettysburg, which has a fantastic arts facility, and go and speak. I took the box camera to a photography class over there, and then got to share that with them and share the opportunity of the national parks artists in residence. Yeah, I mean, it was a whole different beast. And so like from Big Bend to Gettysburg to Hawaii,
dude, it's so cool.
I got to pinch myself sometimes.
I'm looking at on your website, and everyone, if you go to nick-collier.com and you go in the digital photography section, and you're looking at Gettysburg, and you're there in February, that winter and that fog, and then there's just, you feel it, your work. And you also, it's interesting because you capture the past and the present mode in your photography, and it's I know that the park has settings that you can do that, but there's it's just a really interesting perspective. There's one of the cannon that you took where you're taking it from the angle of like looking out towards where the cannon would go and shoot out, right? And the sky is open up where that would shoot. It's kind of like almost like the after effect after it's been shot because of the way the sky is. I don't know if that makes, you know what I mean? It's like the sky opens up right at that break. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really go anywhere in the park, golden hour time especially, and not find a shot of something that's just blows you away. And and I was also, while I was there, I was allowed access down into, got a tour of their archives and their vaults where because they had, the visitor center has a really fantastic museum there and tons of stuff out for you to see and learn about. And they have the cyclorama painting, which has been refurbished, and it's like this, immersive theater show that goes on. And so being able to go down and see stuff like, the table that Robert E. Lee planned the assault of Gettysburg on, the things that aren't up in the museum that kind of rotate out, and a lot of things that people don't normally see because they're not allowed out because they have to stay down in controlled environments and whatever. And then the park set me up with, there's just local guys there that do guided tours around the park. And that, when I did the tour of the park, I forget the gentleman's last name. I know his first name, Jim Pangburn. That was his name. This guy, oh my gosh, I spent an entire day with him driving around the park, and it was, as he's talking, and it's almost like I'm just envisioning everything that's going on there. And it's like too much of an information dump for me to process all at once. But that was in the front end of the residency. And that's what really just, there's all these little snippets of information that you can kind of pull out, things that are really unique. And then kind of, see where they go, run with them a little bit. But that helped a lot of the work that I was producing during that residency as well.
It's interesting. Like also there's a Klingel house. I know that's got to be that, right? The White House, and then there's like a big red barn, but the lights are on, and it's like, I don't know if it's sunrise, sunset. It looks like a sunrise. Because I know somebody said once it's pink is a sunrise and orange is a sunset, and I disagree. And here in the desert, it can be both in one day. In sunrise, I'm just saying. But looking at this photo and the lights being on, and the Klingel house, just looking at it makes me feel like I'm this person arriving there, like as an outsider, maybe not even knowing, it's Gettysburg or anything. If you just look at this, you're like wondering what's going on in the farmhouse. Are they making breakfast? Are they getting ready to go like feed the pigs? You know what I mean? It's like this. Yeah. I love this photo so much because it's one of my, personally, like when you travel and you enter into an area at dawn and you start to see people turn their lights on, and you just imagine how this community is getting ready for that day. And that photo is exactly that. And you just, all the questions come in and you want the scandal. Like, I want to know what's going on. That's a beautiful photo. That really just, it captures like a human heart, the heartbeat just by that light. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. What's with all the soldiers? Because I'm assuming it's Gettysburg because of the fencing being the crisscross, or am I wrong?
Is it the black and white photo you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so some of those black and white photos were digital recreations of the famous photos that everyone associates when you research Gettysburg and the Civil War. The real famous photos that were at the time, that was, photography was just coming about. They're still doing wet plate photos, which were glass, and there's chemicals involved, and it was like really difficult. And as I learned while I was there, actually, that a lot of the photos associated with Gettysburg or with other battles of the Civil War are mislabeled and shared across battles, essentially. And there was another gentleman there. What was his name? I can't. It escapes me right now. He's really famous. He wrote a book. He's like the local, historian that grew up there, and he actually was able to go back and dissect some of the old photos in the 70s and figure out that these photos were mislabeled as far as location. Whether it be trying to be passed, this photo is being passed off as, let's say, Chancellorsville or one of the other larger battles in the war, because photographers weren't there, and they needed visual representation when they published articles in the newspaper or whatever. So then these photos got kind of adopted into the story, and then just kind of made its way through history, being known as the ones that were there, even though they weren't actual locations. So learning things like that. So I took some of those locations and recreated them kind of contemporary, placing myself in the of where those people were, but with contemporary or modern, battle fatigue and weapons. And so the one I think you're talking about, where it's the crossing over the fence, that one was not a recreation, but it was this photo of evocative of the photos that I had seen, but it's actually myself. All the people in the photo are just me. So
what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, if you look close at it, it's me. I photographed myself several times from the same location, and I was able to just like layer
them. And you put the blades
in.
of grass in to make it like here, like
yeah.
Seriously,
so
like can I just say dude again?
They were taking on
amazing.
the battlefield, but they were just it's basically a mashup of several photos, essentially.
Now the one where there's the dead bodies, right, and the fence is in the background there, that looks so historic. It's got like the little splotchies and it's like you've got the sense of now. And I find that that's very important, that we look at what's happening now and what happened then, because at the end of the day, it's the same remorse, death, and that's the same feeling. War is the same feeling.
Right. And then the setting of the photo might be different, but the subject continues, right? That photo could be Fallujah, but I think we've kind of, I don't want to say, although we've become, especially after 9/11, once the height and then with the surge of the war kind of happened and things have mellowed out now, people forget that there's still conflict going on over there, the longest war we've been involved in. And there's almost a desensitizedness to it, right? Like you kind of know it's still going on, we're not as concerned. However, I guess one of the big things from it that I've noticed is that the country as a whole is much more supportive of veterans. All the organizations that have come about since 9/11 that support veterans specifically. It's a side note, but I think that as far as the subject of the photos, that is going to transcend time as far, unless war stops abruptly and nobody.
I mean, to me, you're bringing everything into, time, past, future, now. Everything's in one, making everyone feel everything, and you're putting yourself as all these individuals in there, and you're rephotographing yourself and placing yourself in there. That's so much work, and it's so it's novel. I mean, that's incredible work to do. And I just, Tanya, I mean, really. I mean, no wonder he's back for the third time. Like, he should just go. I mean, this is incredible. And just hearing the history, what Nick brings to the table is his art, his vision, his feeling, emotion, but also this history. I mean, Big Bend, Texas history of war, and then you go to Gettysburg, and then now in Hawaii, and these historic ties. I think there's something to be said about that, with the residency of people understanding our country, and all these different things that we've been through. Nick talking about the neighborhood. I think the art B&B, the Airbnb, the Air, the artist in residence, the art. But
we started calling it that.
I love
so
that.
Nice.
I love the art B&B, but it's at the same time, Nick going into the neighborhood history, and then that's connected to the park. And I think that Nancy and I, how we are about this, the gateway communities in the parks being connected, because they are connected in history. I'm like jumping for joy because of what you're doing in sharing the history, because going to the neighborhood, staying in a farmhouse, staying out in the middle of the desert. This is a trip, Nick. I mean, but I just wanted to ask Tanya, though, did you envision these kinds of things occurring when the foundation, when you first founded the foundation, the National Parks Arts Foundation? Did you imagine this story that we're hearing today of Nick's journey in these parks and how he's telling American history?
No, I have to plead my ignorance here. I did not know that it was actually going to be so important. And that's not a humble brag on the foundation's part. The reason that is out there and so important, and the reason it exists, is because of the artists. They made that story. Nick is showing the world the history and his story and how it relates. We didn't see it coming. We're so lucky and grateful to the artists that are able to do this. Another thing that we didn't see happening was, Nick is one of a few artists that are just keep getting these residencies, and whether it's an artist has a park that they go to, and then the park just says, "We love them, they can come back anytime," kind of thing, as an invitation artist. We didn't see that happening either. So it's amazing. Nick is really making this into its own story. His legacy in the history of the national parks, and their inspiration in the history of them relating to his work.
Exactly. I mean, that's and the importance of this, because there's a submission process, and so everyone, yes, you must submit your resume, and every artist should have this. And here's the deal: this is a good learning path if you haven't put that portfolio together. This is a good process just to do it, to learn how to. And this is really good for your resumes, I believe. Just look at some of the things that have happened, positive things for artists, and how their work has been collected around the world or shown around the world. This is it's an important thing. And when I look at this, I'm going, okay, Nick went through things, had to submit, and then it goes through a panel, right? You have judges that look at it, and then the National Park Service has to look and say, okay, this is a fit. So you have people to go through. It's not just, Tanya going, man, Nick rocks, let's put him in there. There's a process to it. And that's important. And I don't want to scare people off from doing this, but this is a cool program, and it's a real one, and it's really good for your career to do so. Don't you think, Tanya, for those wanting to build up their resume and have the experience and that time to actually get out there and create and learn new things and new ways to do things?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible once, the artists get in, and it does take years. I mean, with Nick and anybody else that has been with us even for, a year and a half, 2 years, this is a lifelong sort of process that you're being supported and invited to national parks. So it's definitely, and to touch on something else that you said, like having your resume together and, something that is a put together package so we can present it to other people is incredibly important. And luckily there's places now like Creative Capital, like Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico, that train artists to do these things. And it's really hard. I mean, as we've touched on before, like artists are artists. That's what they do. But there's another side to art where if you want to be out in the public, if you want to be able to get these grants and different things, and the NEA offers things too for artists, you're going to have to be able to communicate with other people, and you know, in any way, which is hard. I mean, but also that same thing is true for just individuals. It's like, this is what you do, and you need to put yourself out there if you expect to get a job. So,
right. Right.
You know.
And now even looking at the house, I'm talking about this house again, the Art B&B. I mean, listen, Nancy and I looked at it. We were like, okay, when are we moving? Like, what can we do? I'll put a resume together real quick. But it looks so beautiful. And Nick, you put these amazing photos up on Facebook, and we'll show them off for people too. I know as soon as some people,
I know some artists. Before I forget something, though. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Nick took those photos he put up, and we reposted them. You know, I was like, oh my gosh, those are the only photos. We didn't have time to take photos of the place. Thank you, Nick. Those are great photos. Oh my gosh. We have been getting calls from artists saying, can't we just rent the house when we know that you're not doing residencies all year? Can't we just rent the house and go out there? So,
oh my gosh! Wow.
Well, I haven't mentioned it to Tanya, but I already canceled my return ticket, so you're gonna have to.
Fight.
Awesome.
No, I'm kidding. So you got to kick me off the island.
Oh, right. Wow. And don't mess with Nick. Nick, I mean, this house is incredible, and I know you've done in the farmhouse, you know, out in the desert. But I think what's interesting about it is that more than one person can be here, and you could bring a family, and that's something that's important. I think that sometimes artists have, you know, jobs, families, and sometimes there's groups that could go in as a band, you know. So do you feel that it's spacious? I mean, I already saw the photos, but for listeners that haven't seen this is like a spatial place, and it doesn't that kind of change things up a little bit for artists coming out, being able to have more, you know, bring their partners or their families.
You know, Tanya, you want to take this one?
About bringing partners or family, like what does that look like?
Yeah. Tell people.
Well, the house itself is beautiful, obviously, from the photos. There's plenty of room. If, you know, as far as your question goes on that side, you know, if there were, let's say, like Big Ben, for instance, where it was where, you know, myself and Russ, you know, you've had your own areas of the house, basically, if you need to kind of seclude yourself to work for a little while. You have the common area of the living room that you can kind of hang out in, bounce ideas off of other people, if that were the case. But I mean, I know, at least I think I have an inkling of Tanya's vision for what this place is going to turn into. You know, talks of you know, musicians coming out, you know, maybe a future recording studio. There's the garage there that could be probably, you know, a fantastic shop, or maybe even area for ceramics. That, you know, if that were a vision of the future, have a kiln in there and a wheel and stuff. You know, it's. I think from what I've seen anyway, it's in this, you know, baby stages of what this full potential really is, and it's already such a beautiful place, and it's so inviting and such a great place to work and live that it can only get so much better than, you know, up and up and up from here.
Wow, Tanya, this is sounding cool. So recording studio, that's something, because I know musicians, I know bands, they're ready. If they can go we wanted to, you know, buy one of those recording boxes. It looked like an old, you know, the TARDIS on Doctor Who. Yes, I have just shown you what a nerd I am. The old phone boxes. And then we were looking at it, and we got permission to just sort of build a DIY where the Nick will know what I'm talking about. Nobody else will. Well, in part of the living room, the dining room, sort of splitting it off where the wall sort of comes out and making a really small 2-person recording studio with the sliding door. And so, yes, that's what we're looking for. That's a very small space. It would take some real investment. But what we really want to do is there's a studio, well,
it needs to be more of a studio. It's mostly like a garage storage shed right now. And put on a second floor as a recording studio, which would make the recording studio / music room, I don't know, probably 250 square feet.
Ooh, that's, you know, that is totally workable and beautiful, because this place is amazing. And I think it's great because you're close to the park. And I love, Nick, that you're in a newer portion of the park, because often those are the areas that get overlooked. And I think that that's neat that you're there and seeing something different than what's often showcased. And, you know, I just want to ask you, Nick, this is your third residency. And, you know, when we talk to artists and they're going in, what is the biggest thing that you've, you know, come back with? What are the benefits for you that you just keep going and applying again?
Well, I mean, the opportunity, the experiences themselves, even if it weren't, you know, even if all these 3 residencies weren't involved with the arts, you know, these are three trips anybody would want to take, pretty much. But you know, having access, having time, you know, to be able to take a whole month and just do art, right? Like have a place to stay, have resources, you know, pointed to you, you know, to have the time, really, because I think that's one of the biggest things. And it can be, you know, it can be a benefit in some cases, most cases. You know, I can also see how it can deter people, because for anybody to take off a month, you know, away from their families, away from another job, you know, away from all their normal day-to-day things is a big thing. So, you know, the park makes it as easy as they possibly can by aligning all of these things in place for you to make it the most successful experience it can be for you, for what you make it. You know, they try and buffer some of the costs with stipends. They obviously give you housing, you know, lodging you don't have to take care of. So your costs, for the most part, can be, you know, scaled back and pretty minimal. So yeah, I mean, I just got the third time here. I guess I got to really give it to the National Parks and National Parks Arts Foundation, because without them, obviously, this isn't possible. But without the support that they put in place for you, you really can't make this possible, for most people, anyway. And you know, that's what I've really gained from it, and why I keep coming back. You know, I mean, I could apply to residencies anywhere, and I try to, but you know, once you get something good, you keep on coming back, right?
It's like, dude, this is so cool. I know. And also the program being for veterans too, their veterans program, I think, is also so important.
Yes,
and you've got to feel that, right? I mean, that's something unique out there too. And I love this. I love it. And I love how you've got the history and just bringing it to the forefront, even just hearing, you know, what you've experienced, because I know you haven't been out there you just kind of got there. It's like you haven't been out there that long.
It's been about a week. Yeah.
But you're already spouting
history. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I have, you know, I've already learned a ton. One of my biggest takeaways, I will add, so right down the street from the house is, as we were talking earlier, you know, most people associate coffee with a number of things: pineapples, macadamia nuts, coffee being one of the biggest. And you know, everyone always talks about Kona coffee, and that's a big coffee region. But what I've been learning is that this side of the island where the house is, in the Ka'u district, is one of the up and coming coffee areas of the island, and it produces a really fantastic cup of coffee. And there's a couple coffee spots, / one is an orchid farm / one is a pretty large working farm, coffee farm. But in going and getting coffee there, some of you may know this already, light roast has more caffeine. The darker roast just has more flavor and less caffeine. So my whole life, I've been getting dark roast coffee thinking I'm getting more bang for the buck, and it's actually been going in the opposite direction. So
So this is important stuff for all of us because I need my coffee. All of us need this. All of us need this. I just want to know if you met Ziggy Marley yet. I'm sorry, because I know he's doing coffee somewhere out there. I don't know. Maybe I've got it the wrong place. I don't know. But I know he's into coffee. And I'd like to go have a cup of coffee with him and just see what's going on in the world. But yeah, I mean, okay, so Nick, coffee. Let's do this. You're going to have someone come over to the house. And Tanya, this is for you too.
Yeah.
Or coffee, right? Anyone from the past, present, future, anyone that you want them to have this experience of Hawaii, just anywhere in Hawaii, that you would want to sit down and have a cup of coffee with and just kind of, it could be anyone that's been there, but have that experience, see where you're at, have a conversation with. Who would you want to sit down with for a cup of coffee? Make it light roast. Just saying, at the house. Who would you have over?
Oh, I'm first this time. I always have my same answer. This is alive or not alive, right?
Alive or it could be any, and it could be Doctor Who. I mean, I don't care.
I just always say Leonard Cohen. This is the only person.
She's stuck on Leonard with coffee. Okay, so what would you talk to him about in regards to Hawaii?
You know what? I have
never recording studio.
Yeah, I'm gonna make him build a recorded studio. I would talk to him if we were in Hawaii. I talked to him about the differences of being in Crete, in Greece, and Hawaii in music.
Ooh.
What the difference in poetry and music is between the two.
Oh, I think they're the same. But that's my personal opinion. But anyway, there's things. But I think that's really neat about Greece. I think that's cool. Greece is fascinating. Ooh, yeah. Okay, I'll get started on that.
So he knows that he knows the islands there. So compare islands to islands, kind of thing.
I like
the island
it.
lifestyle.
I like it. So Nick, who are you having coffee with? And I know it's light roast, right? Just to make sure.
Oh, light roast for sure. Now for the rest of my life. No, I think I was talking a question while Tanya was talking, and I would try and keep it to the area. So I was thinking, obviously, Mark Twain and Captain Cook, like we just discussed. But I think I would probably actually want to sit down with the towards the end of his life, King Kamehameha, that ruled this region and ruled the islands. Because and I'd want to talk to him about just the change that he's seen with with the Westerners coming in and he as far as I've researched anyway, his reign was around the time that the natives switched from the worship of gods and deities over to what the missionaries were bringing in. And just the way of life that the change of the way of life that the Hawaiians experienced, the native peoples experienced, because it was, as a girlfriend and I were talking about the other day, it's strange. It's almost like Gettysburg in a way for me, because it's strange to think that just 200 years ago the native peoples here were living off of there was the idea of what people think of the native Hawaiians pre-Western occupation. So that's what I talked to him about.
I before we went on air here, I was talking to you about two authors that came on a show many years ago of Hawaii, and they were, one was a photographer and also collected historic photos, black and white photos of Honolulu, and then Galen Quinn in her book. That really went through the royalty and what they went through and how the westernization came in. And when you can actually see, like, historically these people that you're reading about, and she kept it historically accurate and very James Michener, it's one of the best books out there. I'm going to send you links to it because it really goes through that, and there's a way of life that really makes me, I haven't been to Hawaii yet, but it feels very much like our time in Africa. There's this sense of, I don't know, an interesting balance of nature and, understanding things like the winds coming through, like the trade winds, like you were talking about that. It's like having the winds come through. I don't know, life was different. Like you could tell by the seasons. You could tell by the wind. You could tell by, what the animals were doing. I don't know. And then the celebrations, and I don't know. It just always it resonated so big for me reading her books, and then others that I'm very fascinated with it for sure. And I'm so glad you're there and digging up all this stuff so we can learn more and see what you come up with. I'm still just blown away by your Gettysburg photos. I can't even imagine taking your photo and putting yourself in so many different positions in one photo like that. It's just mind blowing.
Oh, yeah. And then, and in order to do a lot of the recreation photos anyway, I was using books that the house had a bunch of historical reference their books and such, and then obviously, like I said, I had access to their archives library system, similar to Big Bend actually in a way. But I had to go. That was a really, really interestingly eerie part of doing those photos, was that I went, using photos from the book, I go out into the battlefield, find that location, I'm holding the book up, looking at the location, holding the book up, doing these things. And I finally get it where I need to be, get the camera set up on a tripod, frame it as close as possible to what the actual photo is, and then to go and lay in that one spot where this old photo depicts someone actually was killed in battle in this spot, died right here. I'm lying in it, and it's like this weird, this crazy, thing going on in my head as far as, what am I doing here? And then and feeling, a little bit of maybe that sense of what they were. And the other thing too, going back to what, being Gettysburg in February, there's several benefits. One, I already talked about, there's nobody there. Two, all the trees have no leaves, so you have a much better view across the battlefield, and you can see different places in the woods where encampments were, and so forth, so on. And that really helps too. But where was I going with this? Anyway, just immersing yourself in that is just fantastic.
I love this. I love your stories of this and what you're just teaching us so much. So I appreciate your work and can't wait to see as things progress for you when you're out there. Tanya, any deadlines you need to yell at people so they know? Because I know, July is here, and people, what do we need to know?
Oh my gosh, I should have looked it up beforehand. You need to know to go to nationalparks-arts-foundation.org and look at the deadlines. Press apply and look at the deadlines. We do have one coming up for the last residency, as you know, in Hawaii, which is September, which is for musicians, songwriters, anything audio or written. Okay. So we have a specific, the specific residency for that.
Awesome.
I probably shouldn't say anything, but we are hoping, it's not official, and I actually have to call them today. We're hoping to somehow partner with the Hawaii Songwriting Festival that's going to be here next month. So they seem just like this festival they have seems amazing, and you got to look at their website. Like, I can't believe the people that they have coming. They really are working hard at this thing. And I think they've had it for a couple of years now. So it's amazing. They've got music producers there, all kinds of stuff. I'm real impressed with getting that done here in Hawaii. And that's between Kona and Waimea. So super close. But anyway, the deadlines. Yeah, look at our deadlines. And the other thing that's going to be happening pretty soon here in a few weeks is we're going to be putting up more residencies. I think that the big sort of, not mistake, I mean, it's understandable, but we can't fit all of our residencies onto the application page. And the reason I say that is because they're rotating. So we have new residencies all the time. Some are only up for a week, and then people think that they've applied to every single one of them, and they're all individual. So it just takes, unfortunately, setting your Google alerts and paying attention to our Facebook and Twitter and that kind of thing.
Newsletter. Get the newsletter. The newsletter.
I know.
That's a key thing, and it's interesting to me. Yeah, when you're signing up, right? To me, isn't and Nick, please chime in on this. Aren't you looking at the park specifically, other than I just want to go to a park? Other than, I mean, we all want to just do that, but isn't there some like a connection to what you envision when you submitted to Gettysburg, Big Bend, and to Hawaii volcanoes?
Yeah, no, the if you go on the website, it's really easy to navigate. As you were saying, it's not just you're throwing your hat in the ring and send me where the park wants to send me. No, they're broken down into locations, the dates, the year. Even some of them are are still a year out from now, so you have time to prepare for those things and so forth and so on. But they make the process pretty streamlined. I'm somewhat computer proficient, I guess, and that doesn't give me any issue. But a lot of that stuff too, going back to what you were saying before, and working as a professional artist and having things, ready for professionally submit these things. Some of those things are kind of boilerplate. If you have them up to date, it's really easy to just drag and drop. Your CV, your bio, these things that are not really changing day to day, and so some of those things, it's they don't have to tailor them to the residency specifically. So that if you have those things in place already, that really helps streamline the process and makes it a lot easier on yourself. And it presents you in a way that the parks are looking for, in a professional manner, somebody that's not going to waste their time, hopefully, and someone that they're looking for to come into the park and make work about the park and share the park with the public. So I encourage anyone that's interested, especially if you've seen the photos of the house now and you're interested in Hawaii, go on the website and look at the other opportunities. I mean, they're really all over, as you're saying before. Dry Tortugas, we're in Hawaii now, Gettysburg, Big Bend, several sites out in the Southwest. It's really up to you as far as the experience you want to make it and what you want to get out of it. So go and apply. I can't encourage people enough.
Just do it. Yeah, just do it.
Oh, thanks, you guys.
We only live once.
So great. You're awesome.
It is, but it's true. We only live once. And maybe, I know you've done 3, and some people would be like, oh, this one, I'm going to take this one whole month. You know what? You live once. Or maybe we come back, but who knows? We may come back in a different planet. We don't know. So just, we could be in Mars, So really do it, because this could be an amazing thing for your life. And sometimes we need a pattern interruption for our day-to-day thing. And I know in art, that's what art is about. It's to stop you from doing the same thing or thinking the same way over and over. So stop the pattern and make a new one. Color outside the lines. That's all I have to say. So thank you very much and good night. Thank you both for joining us. That's my thing. I just had to be Nancy there for a second. She wasn't able to join in on the conversation today. We have some major news coming out on Big Blend, so keep up with us. Big Blend Radio airs Sunday through Friday, so keep up with us at bigblendradio.com for the schedule. And you can listen as shows go live, or you can listen on demand. Everything's up there. But again, most importantly, go to nationalparks-arts-foundation.org, sign up for their newsletter, keep up with them on social media, and go keep up with Nick as well. Go see him dressed in armor with wings. Go to nick-collier.com. You didn't think I was going to forget to talk about that again, right, Nick? Armor. Yeah, that's coming up. And I just think every residency that you do, that you should be in armor, like at the Klingle House. I want to see you in Hawaii with volcanoes behind you with armor on. Just saying, that should happen. But go to nick-collier.com. He's also on Instagram at CollierN001. So keep up with him there. And we've got some music for you guys. You're in Hawaii, so we have to, play one of our favorite Hawaiian musicians, Makana. And I believe he's going to be at that Songwriters Festival. I don't know. I have this feeling I saw something, but I could be wrong. This is a song called Home, because you've got your own art home. So I had to play it. Just saying. So it is called Home. It is off of his album Ripe. And go to makanamusic.com. Thank you so much, Nick. It's been a pleasure having you back.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a real treat.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thanks, you guys. Have a good week.
Everybody behave yourselves, but really don't. Here it is. Home. Take care.
For how long will you be traveling as a lady fair to her love?
I don't know. It could be 15 years or a couple of months. It's untold.
Since you've been here, I've grown so close to you. Yet I know that soon you'll be gone, and I'd wait for you. It would not hurt me to, but I need to know what you want.
Love isn't shown by making promises, and it doesn't come through sacrifice. It's always here. All that you have to do is allow it to be your guide. You came to me and let me see myself in a way that I never had. And all my fears came up from down below, and I let them go, and I'm glad. I'm going where these songs will carry me, far across the sea for a while. So be yourself and listen to your heart. That is all I ask from you, my love. How many roads must we travel down before we find our way home? How many roads must we travel down before we find our way home? How many roads must we travel down before we find our way home? How many roads must we travel down before we find our way?